I started to work with kids in refugee camps, conflict zones, disaster areas. They didn't have access to schools or teachers. How can we encourage children to learn within a context that is external to traditional education? We defined this map of all that you could learn as a tree, where a student would start off just with a single stem. They would then go through a process of searching for what they want to learn, and then we would attach that to their tree, and then as they learn new things, their tree would grow. And so every student's tree would be very different, depending on what they chose to learn. The one thing we struggled to do was to figure out how we actually motivate kids to learn. We tried to throw as much game mechanics into it as we could. And the trouble there was, you'd quickly increase engagement with game mechanics, but kids figured out that there wasn't any real value to these points they were earning. We deconstructed educational concepts and educational standards, but that's not what kids want to learn. They don't want to learn two-digit addition if it doesn't mean anything to them. They don't want to learn how to read or write if it doesn't mean anything to them. But here, if we were to, for example, help the student that wanted to become a bicycle mechanic become that bicycle mechanic, they wanted to create a business, right? So in order to create a business, they need to understand the concept of writing up invoices, tracking invoices, buying materials, writing up a business plan, writing up a grant proposal, and all of these tangible things would encourage them to learn how to read or write. If the person wanted to become a music producer, we could look at all the nodes that we deconstructed that relates to music production, and we could graph them on this map. Every query would be unique, and every query plus personality would have a unique map. So you can think of this as a Google search, which is completely customized and personalized to the student. So here the student now has the option to pick what they want to learn, plus they have an understanding of how that relates to everything that they could learn. One is they need to learn all of these things, right? But the second part of the question is, how do I actually take what I've learned and action it? How do I do something with this learning? These two things should actually be done in parallel. And that's when we started to work on the doing side of the map, with the learning side of the map. And so a few years ago, I discovered an organization called iGEM, which showed us one of the ways we could do this. And iGEM is a pretty cool case study. It's a nonprofit foundation started about 12 years ago with a simple goal of encouraging high school students and university students to collaborate in synthetic biology projects. They had two main rules. One is teams that want to take part need to work openly. They have to document everything openly. And two, they need to make sure that what they document openly is interoperable, so that a team from one school could quite easily leverage the work from another team. The projects that were coming out of these teams were pretty mediocre for the first 2 years. But by year 3, the students now had 2 years worth of work to work off. And so here we have students which are outcompeting some of the most well-funded research labs. What if we applied that same approach by solving global challenges like the Sustainable Development Goals? I started working with a number of universities, a number of programs, and we built this type of platform which allows universities or schools to create these programs where students, instead of sitting in classrooms learning theory, they would work on real-world projects solving these problems. And as they would do that, they would document how they did that on this platform, thereby automatically deconstructing their projects so that future students can quite easily leverage their work. This was now 5 years into the project. Suddenly life happened, and over the course of about 6 hours, my daughter became 90% paralyzed due to a rare illness. Her left arm was completely paralyzed, and the motor neurons in the left arm were completely destroyed. This is suddenly a very tangible thing that she wants to do, right? She's got a paralyzed arm. She's a kid who's intrinsically motivated to solve this problem. How can we solve this? And so it was on that hospital bed that we decided, okay, let's try and solve this. And we decided to use the learning map and the doing map to try and solve this problem. The exoskeleton, how do we 3D print? How do we do all of these things? So we had a bunch of learning maps we worked through, and then we had a bunch of doing maps we worked through. Through the use of collective intelligence, we were able to build this exoskeleton 100 times cheaper than one is available. It highlights how the concept of a learning map and a doing map can be leveraged in not only education, but also within the business world on how we can solve problems.